The afternoon sun hammered down on Millbrook, a small town in southern Indiana where everyone knew everyone else's business, and strangers were noticed before they even parked their vehicles. Route 37 cut through the heart of downtown like a scar, separating the older brick buildings on the east side from the newer strip mall on the west. On this particular Thursday in late September, the temperature hovered around 85 degrees, and the air smelled of hot asphalt and cut grass from the park 2 blocks over. Mason Turner sat on the curb outside Brennan's hardware store, his sneakers scuffed and too small for his growing feet. At 11 years old, Mason had the kind of face that looked older than his years. Sharp cheekbones, eyes that seemed to calculate every movement around him, and a mouth that rarely smiled. His brown hair needed cutting, falling into his eyes as he watched the street with the patience of someone who had learned to wait. In his lap sat a composition notebook, its cover bent and stained. Inside were lists of grocery prices at 3 different stores, lists of his younger brother's medication schedules, lists of bills his mother couldn't pay. Mason had become the family accountant at an age when most kids only worried about video games and weekend sleepovers. The rumble started as a distant thunder, growing louder until it shook the air itself. Mason looked up, squinting against the sun's glare. 8 motorcycles rolled down Route 37 in formation, their chrome catching the light like scattered diamonds. They weren't the crotch rocket sport bikes that sometimes raced through town at midnight. These were heavy machines, Harley-Davidsons mostly, with one Indian Scout bringing up the rear. The riders wore leather vests decorated with patches, their faces hidden behind sunglasses and bandanas. Most people on the street stopped what they were doing. Mrs. Henderson clutched her purse tighter outside the pharmacy. Dale Cooper, the deputy sheriff, straightened from where he'd been leaning against his patrol car, his hand moving unconsciously toward his belt. The general attitude toward motorcycle clubs in small towns like Millbrook was one of wary respect, mixed with suspicion, even though many riders participated in charity work and community events. The motorcycles pulled into the parking lot of Red's Diner across the street, their engines cutting off one by one until silence rushed back in to fill the void. The riders dismounted with practiced ease, stretching road-stiff muscles. They moved like men who'd spent countless hours in the saddle, their boots heavy on the pavement. The man who appeared to be their leader stood a few inches over 6 feet, built like someone who'd done hard physical labor his entire life. His vest bore more patches than the others, including one that read Road Captain and another with the name Iron stitched in white thread. His beard was shot through with gray, and when he removed his sunglasses, his eyes were a startling pale blue, the kind that seemed to look right through a person. Jack Iron Wallace had been riding with the Thunder Valley Riders for 23 years. The club wasn't one of the outlaw organizations that made headlines. They were what some called a riding club, men and a few women who worked regular jobs during the week and hit the road on weekends, seeking the freedom that only came from 2 wheels and an open highway. Still, Jack's past wasn't spotless, and the weight of old mistakes sat heavy on his shoulders, even if most people who met him now wouldn't guess at the darker chapters of his history. "Food smells good," commented the rider next to Jack, a younger man named Marcus Kane, whose arms were covered in intricate tattoos. "I'm starving." "When aren't you starving?" replied a woman with auburn hair pulled back in a tight braid. Rachel Briggs was the only female rider in this particular group, and she could outride most of the men on a technical course. She'd proven it enough times that no one questioned her presence anymore. As the group started moving toward the diner's entrance, Mason stood up from the curb. He tucked the notebook under his arm and took a deep breath. His heart hammered against his ribs, and his palms were sweating. He'd been waiting here for 2 hours, ever since he'd seen the post on social media about a motorcycle club passing through town on their way to a charity event in Louisville. Mason had done his research. He knew who they were. He knew what they represented. And he knew this might be his only chance. Mason walked across the street, his legs feeling oddly disconnected from his body. A car honked at him, and he hurried the last few steps, nearly tripping over the curb on the other side. The riders had almost reached the diner's door when Mason's voice cut through the afternoon air. "Excuse me!" Several of the riders turned, their expressions ranging from curious to annoyed. Jack Wallace stopped completely, his hand on the diner's door handle. He looked at Mason with those pale blue eyes, taking in the too small clothes, the worn notebook, the determined set of the boy's jaw. "Can we help you, kid?" Jack's voice was deep, roughened by years of road dust and cigarette smoke he'd finally quit 5 years ago. Mason took another step forward. His voice didn't shake, which surprised him. "I need to ask you something, all of you." The other riders had turned now, forming a loose semicircle. Marcus crossed his arms, his expression skeptical. Rachel tilted her head, her brown eyes softening slightly as she really looked at the boy. The others, Danny Park, Christopher Hayes, Brandon Mills, Trevor Schmidt, and Luis Vargas, waited with varying degrees of interest and impatience. They were hungry, tired from the road, and this kid was delaying their meal. "Make it quick," Marcus said, not unkindly. "We've been riding since 6 this morning." Mason looked at each of them in turn, as if memorizing their faces. Then he spoke, his words clear and deliberate. "I need you to teach me how to be intimidating." The request hung in the air like something physical. Several of the riders exchanged glances. Christopher Hayes, a bear of a man with a thick black beard, actually laughed. A short, surprised bark of sound. "What?" Trevor Schmidt asked, leaning forward slightly. "Kid, did you just—" "I need to learn how to be scary," Mason interrupted, his voice gaining strength. "Not to hurt anybody, just to make someone leave my family alone." Jack hadn't moved, but his expression had changed. The casual dismissal was gone, replaced by something sharper, more focused. "How old are you?" 11, almost 12. "Where are your parents?" "My mom's at work. She works 2 jobs." Mason swallowed hard, his throat suddenly tight. "And I need to protect her and my little brother. There's a man who—" His voice cracked slightly, and he had to stop to gather himself. "There's a man who won't leave her alone, and the police can't do anything because he hasn't technically broken any laws yet. He's always there, following her, showing up at her work, leaving things at our door." The atmosphere changed instantly. The riders were no longer tired, hungry men eager for a meal. They were alert, focused, their casual body language shifting into something harder. Rachel took a step closer to Mason, her expression intense. "Stalking," she said flatly. "He's stalking your mother." Mason nodded. "His name is Philip Garner. He used to be her manager at the factory before it closed down. He's been obsessed with her for over a year. We got a restraining order, but he doesn't care. He stays just far enough away that it's not technically violating it, but we know he's watching, always watching." The words were spilling out now, faster and faster. "My mom is terrified. She won't say it, but I see how she jumps at every sound. My little brother Connor, he's 7, and he has asthma, and the stress is making it worse. We can't afford to move, and my mom says we just have to wait it out. But I don't think he's going to stop. I think he's going to—" "Hey." Jack's voice was gentle but firm. "Breathe, son." Mason sucked in air, realizing he'd been talking without breathing properly. His chest felt tight. He blinked rapidly, refusing to let the tears come. He'd promised himself he wouldn't cry. Crying was for little kids, and he wasn't little anymore. He'd stopped being little the day his father died 3 years ago, leaving behind a medical debt that still crushed them, and a family that didn't know how to function without him. Jack knelt down, bringing himself to Mason's eye level. Up close, The boy could see the lines etched deep around the man's eyes, the small scar cutting through his left eyebrow, the rough texture of his weathered skin. But he could also see something else, a kind of understanding that went beyond words. "Listen to me carefully," Jack said. "What you're asking us, it's not about being intimidating. Real protection doesn't come from learning how to look scary. It comes from having people around you who won't let anything bad happen. Do you understand?" Mason's throat worked as he tried to find his voice. "So, you won't help me?" "I didn't say that." Jack stood, his knees cracking slightly. He looked at his fellow riders, and something passed between them. A silent conversation built on years of riding together, making decisions together, having each other's backs on long stretches of highway and in situations that occasionally turned dangerous. Rachel spoke first. "We're listening." "We need more information," Christopher added, his earlier amusement completely gone. "Names, addresses, the full situation." "And we need to meet your mother," Louis said. His accent carried traces of his Puerto Rican heritage, his words measured and careful. "This isn't something we can do without her knowledge." Marcus had pulled out his phone, already typing. "Philip Garner, you said? I'm running a search. If he's got a record, we'll find it." Jack looked back at Mason, and the boy saw something in those pale eyes that made his chest loosen slightly. Not pity, but recognition. One survivor seeing another. "Here's what's going to happen," Jack said. "We're going to go inside, and you're coming with us. You're going to tell us everything while we eat, and you're going to eat too, because you look like you haven't had a decent meal in days. Then we're going to figure out what we can actually do to help. But I need you to understand something first. We're not going to hurt this guy. That's not how this works. Violence just creates more problems. What we can do is make it very clear that your family is no longer alone, that there are people watching out for you. Sometimes that's enough, sometimes it's not, but it's where we start." "Agreed." Mason nodded, not trusting his voice. "Good." Jack put a hand on the boy's shoulder, guiding him toward the diner. "And for the record, kid, what you did just now, walking up to a group of bikers you don't know and asking for help, that took more courage than most adults I know. You don't need to learn how to be intimidating. You need people on your side who are already there, and as of right now, you've got 8 of them." As they walked into Red's diner, Mason felt something he hadn't felt in months, a small, fragile thread of hope. Red's diner smelled like coffee, bacon grease, and lemon cleaner, a combination that somehow worked in the way that only small-town diners managed. The interior was classic Americana, with red vinyl booths, a long counter with rotating stools, and walls covered in local high school sports photos, and faded advertisements for brands that didn't exist anymore. The lunch rush had ended, leaving only a handful of customers scattered throughout the space. Janice Murphy, who'd been waitressing at Red's for 30 years, looked up from wiping down the counter when the door chimed. Her welcoming smile froze slightly when she saw the leather-clad riders filing in. But years of customer service training kept her professional. When she noticed Mason Turner with them, her eyebrows rose. Everyone in Millbrook knew the Turner family's struggles. "Afternoon," Jack said, his tone deliberately friendly. "We need a big table if you've got one." "Booth in the back can fit you if you squeeze," Janice replied, already grabbing menus. "Sweet tea all around?" "Works for me," Rachel said, and the others nodded agreement. They settled into the large corner booth, with Mason ending up between Jack and Rachel. The boy looked small, surrounded by the riders, his shoulders hunched forward as if he was trying to take up less space. Jack pushed a menu toward him. "Order whatever you want. This is on us." "I don't have any." "Did I ask if you had money?" Jack's tone was gentle but firm. "When someone offers to feed you, you say thank you and pick something good." Mason swallowed and nodded. "Thank you. Better." Jack opened his own menu, though he already knew what he wanted. He'd been to enough diners across enough states that the menus all blurred together. Now, start from the beginning. Tell us about Philip Garner. As Janice returned with waters and sweet teas, taking their orders, Mason asked for a cheeseburger and fries, his voice barely above a whisper. The boy began to talk. The story came out haltingly at first, then gaining momentum like a dam breaking. Philip Garner was 42 years old, never married, and had worked as a floor manager at the Morrison manufacturing plant, where Mason's mother, Claire Turner, had been employed for 8 years. According to Mason, Garner had always been friendly with Claire. Too friendly, looking back on it now. After Mason's father, David Turner, died from cancer, Garner's attention had intensified. At first, Mum said he was just being nice, Mason explained, his fingers tracing patterns in the condensation on his water glass. He'd check on her during shifts, ask how she was doing, offer to help with paperwork. But then it got weird. He started asking her out, like constantly. She kept saying no, but he wouldn't stop. He'd follow her to her car after her shift. He'd show up at the grocery store when she was shopping. He always had an excuse. He lived nearby. He needed the same things. It was a coincidence. It's never a coincidence, Rachel said quietly, her jaw tight. She knew about men like Garner. Most women did. Marcus had his phone out, scrolling through search results. Found him. Philip Garner, age 42, address on Maple Street here in Millbrook. No criminal record. Works at he paused, scrolling. Currently employed at Morrison Auto Parts. That's the store that opened after the manufacturing plant closed? Yes, Mason confirmed. Mum didn't want to work there because of him. But there aren't many jobs in Millbrook. She works at the Quick Mart now, and she cleans offices at night, but he still finds her. Tell us about the restraining order, Jack prompted. Mason took a breath. 6 months ago, he came to our house at midnight. He was drunk, banging on the door, yelling about how Mom was making a mistake, how they were meant to be together, how Dad wouldn't want her to be alone. Connor woke up and got so scared he couldn't breathe. His asthma got really bad. We had to call 911 for Connor, and the police came too. They arrested Garner for public intoxication and trespassing. Mom finally got a restraining order. He has to stay at least 300 feet away from her, from our house, from Connor's school. But he's found the loopholes, Christopher said grimly. He parks 400 feet from our house, just sitting in his truck, watching. He walks past the Quick Mart on the public sidewalk outside, looking through the windows. He's always exactly where the law says he's allowed to be. But we know what he's doing. Mum called the police twice, but they measured the distances, and he wasn't violating the order. Deputy Cooper is sympathetic, but his hands are tied. Trevor Schmidt, who'd been quiet until now, leaned forward. At 51, he was the oldest of the group besides Jack, with grey hair pulled back in a ponytail and reading glasses perched on his nose. What about your mother's employer? Have they done anything? The Quick Mart manager, Mr. Patterson, he's nice, but there's not much he can do. The store is on a public street. He can't stop people from walking by, and Mom needs the job. She can't afford to quit. Mason's voice dropped lower. We're already behind on rent. The medical bills from when my dad was sick there, we're drowning. Mum tries to hide it from me, but I see the past due notices. I hear her crying at night when she thinks Connor and I are asleep. The food arrived, and Janice set plates down with practiced efficiency. She'd clearly been listening, not even pretending otherwise, and her expression was troubled. Mason, honey, I didn't realize things were that bad for your mama. If there's anything... Thank you, Ms. Murphy, Mason said politely, automatically, the way kids in small towns were taught to address adults. But his thanks felt rote, like he'd heard too many offers of vague help that never materialized into anything concrete. After Janice left, Jack picked up his burger, but he didn't take a bite. He was thinking, his pale eyes distant. The others ate in relative silence, the usual road trip camaraderie subdued by the heaviness of Mason's story. Luis broke the quiet. The charity event in Louisville can wait a few hours. This is more important. Agreed, Rachel said immediately. We need to see this situation firsthand. Brandon Mills, who'd been mostly silent throughout, spoke up. His voice was surprisingly soft for a man who looked like he could bend steel bars. I have a cousin who's a lawyer in Indianapolis. Family law, mostly, but she might have insights on stalking cases. I can make a call. Do it, Jack said. He finally took a bite of his burger, chewing thoughtfully. Mason, I need you to understand something. What we're dealing with here is a pattern of obsessive behavior. Men like Garner, they don't usually stop on their own. The fact that he's been escalating from workplace harassment to stalking to that incident at your home, that's a red flag. I know, Mason said quietly. That's why I'm scared. That's why I waited for you. Why us specifically? Marcus asked. I mean, I'm glad you did, but how did you even know we'd be passing through? Mason pulled out his phone, an old model with a cracked screen. I follow groups that post about charity rides. I saw your club was doing the Louisville Children's Hospital fundraiser and that you'd be taking Route 37. I've been planning this for 3 weeks. He looked around the table, his young face deadly serious. I don't have money to hire anyone. I can't protect my mom by myself. But I thought maybe if she had people around her, people who looked like they could handle trouble, maybe he'd back off. Maybe he'd realize she's not alone. The simplicity of the plan was both heartbreaking and desperate. Jack felt something twist in his chest, an old, familiar pain he'd tried to bury years ago. He'd failed to protect someone once. It was the reason he'd left his hometown in Pennsylvania, the reason he'd ridden west and never looked back. The details were different, but the core truth was the same. Someone vulnerable, someone powerless, needing help that should have been there and wasn't. Here's what's going to happen, Jack said, setting down his burger and wiping his hands on a napkin. We're going to meet your mother. We're going to explain who we are and what we can offer. Then we're going to make it very clear to Philip Garner that Claire Turner has friends now, lots of friends, the kind who don't take kindly to harassment. Or we can set up a rotation, Rachel suggested. Make sure someone's around at key times, when she's going to work, coming home, during her overnight shift. We're only here for a few hours, Danny Park pointed out. He was the youngest of the group at 28, with an accountant's practical mindset. We have jobs, lives. We can't stay in Millbrook indefinitely. No, but we have connections, Christopher countered. There are riding clubs all over Indiana. We put the word out, explain the situation. I guarantee you we can find locals who'll step up. Bikers Against Child Abuse, Louis said suddenly. BACA. They do this kind of thing all the time, supporting families dealing with violence and intimidation. I know guys in their Indianapolis chapter. Jack nodded slowly. That's good. We need to build a network here. But first things first, we need Claire Turner's consent. This doesn't work if she doesn't want our help. Mason, where's your mom working right now? She's at the Quick Mart until 5. Then she comes home to make dinner and help Connor with homework. Her night shift starts at 9. Jack checked his watch. It was nearly 3 o'clock. All right, we finish eating, then we go to the Quick Mart. Brandon, make that call to your cousin. Marcus, reach out to any clubs you know in this region. Trevor, see if you can find more information on Garner, employment history, social media, anything that might give us a better picture of who we're dealing with. Everyone else, be ready to be respectful, but clear. We're not here to scare Claire Turner. We're here to offer support. What about me? Mason asked. Jack looked at him. You're going to sit right here and finish your lunch. Then you're going to show us where you live and let us do what we do best. Which is? A slight smile crossed Jack's weathered face, looking out for people who need it. The Quick Mart sat on the corner of Main and 5th, a squat building with faded yellow paint and a flickering neon sign that buzzed constantly. It was the kind of convenience store that survived in small towns through sheer necessity, open 16 hours a day, selling everything from milk and bread to fishing licenses and lottery tickets. The parking lot was cracked asphalt, with weeds pushing through every gap. When 8 motorcycles pulled into that parking lot at 3:30 in the afternoon, every head in the vicinity turned. Through the store's large front windows, Jack could see a woman behind the counter stiffen, her hand moving towards something beneath the register, probably a panic button or phone. "Let me go in first," Jack said, dismounting. "Alone. The rest of you wait here, but stay visible. We want to look protective, not threatening." Mason started to follow, but Rachel gently pulled him back. "Give Jack a minute. Your mom's probably already scared seeing all of us. Let him explain before you go in." The bell above the door chimed as Jack entered. The store smelled like industrial cleaning solution and the rotating hot dogs that had probably been on the warmer since morning. There were 2 customers, an elderly man at the coffee station and a teenage girl browsing the magazine rack. The woman behind the counter watched Jack approach with the kind of tense alertness that came from living with chronic fear. Claire Turner was 34 years old, but looked older, the way people did when stress and exhaustion became their constant companions. Her dark blonde hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her Quick-Mart polo shirt was a size too large, as if she'd recently lost weight. She had the same sharp cheekbones as Mason, the same brown eyes. But where her son's eyes held determination, hers held something more fragile, a barely contained anxiety that probably never fully left her, even in sleep. "Can I help you?" Her voice was steady, professional, but Jack heard the tremor underneath. "Mrs. Turner, my name is Jack Wallace. I need to talk to you about your son, Mason. He's fine. He's outside right now, but we need a few minutes of your time." The professional mask cracked. "What happened? Is he hurt? Why is he with you?" Her gaze flicked past Jack to the windows, where the other riders stood by their bikes, and Mason was visible between Rachel and Marcus. "He's not hurt. In fact, he's probably the bravest kid I've met in a long time." Jack kept his voice low, calm, the tone he'd learned working as a construction foreman before he'd retired last year. "But he told us about your situation, about Philip Garner." Claire's face went white. Her hand gripped the counter edge, knuckles turning bone pale. "He had no right to—" She stopped, visibly struggling for composure. "I'm sorry, but I don't know you, and this is a private family matter. I appreciate whatever you think you're doing, but—" "Mrs. Turner." Jack leaned forward slightly, making sure she could see his face clearly, see that he wasn't a threat. "Your 11-year-old son stood on a street corner for 2 hours waiting for us to ride through town so he could ask strangers for help protecting you. That's not normal kid behavior. That's desperation. And before you get angry at him, understand that he did it because he loves you and because he's terrified that something bad is going to happen. He's not wrong to be scared. Men who stalk women, who obsess over them despite restraining orders, they're dangerous and they usually escalate." Claire's eyes were filling with tears, but she blinked them back furiously. "You think I don't know that? You think I'm not scared every single second of every day? But what am I supposed to do? The police can't help unless he actually does something. My family is 3 states away. I can't afford to move. I can barely afford to eat. So yes, I'm dealing with it the best I can, and I don't need—" Her voice cracked. "I don't need my son involving motorcycle gangs. We're not a gang. We're a riding club. There's a difference." Jack's voice remained gentle. "We work regular jobs. Well, most of us do. I'm retired from construction. Rachel out there is a veterinary technician. Marcus manages a sporting goods store. We ride on weekends, we support charities, and sometimes we help people who need it. That's all we're offering here. Help. I can't pay you. We don't want payment. Then what do you want?" Jack considered the question. What did he want? To ease his conscience? To make up for past failures? Maybe. But looking at Claire Turner's exhausted, frightened face, he realized it was simpler than that. "We want to make sure you and your boys are safe. That's it." The elderly man at the coffee station approached the register with his cup, and Claire automatically rang him up, her movements mechanical. After he left, she stood there for a long moment, her shoulders slumped. "Tell me what you're proposing," she finally said. Jack explained the plan, the rotating presence of riders around her home and workplace, connections to other local motorcycle clubs who could provide ongoing support, the possibility of involving organizations like Bikers Against Child Abuse, who specialized in protecting families from violence. As he talked, he saw Claire's expression shift from defensive to uncertain, to something that looked dangerously close to hope. "But won't that just make him angrier?" she asked. "If he sees people around me, won't he think I don't know, that I'm flaunting something, that I'm trying to provoke him?" "Maybe, but here's the thing. Right now, he thinks you're isolated. He thinks you're vulnerable. He's counting on you being too scared, too poor, too alone to fight back effectively. When he realizes you're not alone, one of two things happens. Either he backs off because the situation is no longer under his control, or he escalates in a way that's obvious and gives law enforcement grounds to actually arrest him." Jack's expression hardened. Neither of those outcomes is ideal, but both are better than what you're living with now, which is constant terror and a threat that's slowly tightening. Claire wiped at her eyes with the back of her hand. "I don't want my kids growing up thinking the world is so dangerous they need armed guards. We're not armed, and we're not guards. We're just people who give a damn, and there aren't enough of those." The bell chimed again. Claire's whole body went rigid, her breath catching. Jack turned to see who'd entered, his own body tensing, ready for trouble. It was Mason, slipping inside with the guilty look of a kid who'd been told to wait but couldn't anymore. "Mom, I'm sorry. I just wanted to make sure you're okay." Claire's expression crumbled. She came around the counter in 3 quick steps and pulled her son into a fierce hug, holding him like she was afraid he might disappear. "You can't do things like this," she whispered into his hair. You're 11, baby. This isn't your job." "But you're my mom." Mason's voice was muffled against her shoulder. "And I'm scared, and I don't know what else to do." They stayed like that for several seconds, mother and son clinging to each other in a fluorescent-lit convenience store, while a stranger in leather watched and pretended not to see the tears. Finally, Claire pulled back, holding Mason's face in her hands. "I'm going to call Mr. Patterson," she said. "I'm taking my break early. We're going to go outside and talk to your new friends, and we're going to figure this out together, okay?" Mason nodded, relief flooding his face. 20 minutes later, the group had relocated to the small park 2 blocks from the Quick Mart, gathering around a cluster of picnic tables under oak trees that were just beginning to show autumn colors. Connor Turner had been collected from his after-school program by Rachel, and the 7-year-old sat close to his mother, his inhaler visible in his shirt pocket. He looked at the bikers with wide eyes, fascinated and nervous in equal measure. Claire listened as Jack and the others expanded on their plan. Brandon had spoken to his lawyer cousin, who'd provided some useful information about stalking laws in Indiana and suggested documenting every instance of Garner's behavior, no matter how small. Marcus had made contact with 2 other riding clubs in the region, the Iron Road Warriors from Bloomington and the Freedom Riders from Terre Haute, who'd agreed to help coordinate support. "How long can you do this?" Claire asked practically. "I mean, you all have lives. You can't just stay here indefinitely." "The event in Louisville is tomorrow," Jack explained. "We'll stay in Millbrook tonight. Keep an eye on your house during your night shift. Tomorrow morning, some of us will ride to Louisville while others stay here to coordinate with the local clubs. By tomorrow evening, you'll have a rotation set up with riders who live close enough to make this sustainable." "And what do I tell people?" "What do I tell Philip if he sees bikers hanging around?" "You tell him the truth," Rachel said firmly, "that you've made friends who care about your safety. You're not doing anything wrong. He's the one who needs to worry about his behavior." Claire looked at each of them in turn, these strangers who'd ridden into her life because her desperate son had asked for help. "Why would you do this? Really?" It was Trevor who answered, his voice thoughtful. "Because most of us have seen what happens when people look the other way. When everyone assumes someone else will help, so nobody does. We're not heroes, Mrs. Turner. We're just people who've been riding together long enough to know that the best part of this life isn't the bikes or the road. It's the community. It's having people who show up." Christopher nodded. "My sister was stalked by an ex-boyfriend when she was in college. She dropped out, moved back home, and it still took months to feel safe again. I was younger then, didn't know how to help her. I've regretted that ever since. And we can do this because of our nature as a community," Luis added. "The riding culture, it's about brotherhood and looking out for each other. We just extend that to people who need it." Claire was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Okay, but I have conditions." "Name them," Jack said. "First, nothing illegal. I won't have you threatening him or breaking the law on my behalf. Second, you coordinate with Deputy Cooper. He's a good man, and I want law enforcement in the loop. Third, if this starts to put you or your families in danger, you back off. I won't have other people getting hurt because of my problems." "All reasonable," Jack agreed. "Anything else?" Claire looked at Mason, then at Connor, who was leaning against her side. "If you're going to be around my kids, I need to know you're safe. I need to know who you are, not just names, but real information. Where you work, where you live, how to contact you." "Fair enough." Jack pulled out his phone. "I'll send you a list of all of us, including background information. You want to run checks on us, that's fine. You want references from people we've helped before, I can provide those too. This only works if you trust us, and trust has to be earned." The conversation continued as the afternoon light slanted low through the trees. They discussed schedules, communication methods, what to do if Garner approached directly, how to document everything for potential legal action. Connor, growing bored with the adult talk, started asking Danny about his motorcycle, and soon the 7-year-old was getting a detailed explanation of engine sizes and road handling while sitting on the bike's seat, grinning like he'd just been given the best present of his life. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Jack found himself sitting across from Claire at the picnic table, while the others dispersed into small conversational groups. She was watching Connor laugh at something Danny said, and her expression was complex, relief and fear and exhaustion all mixed together. "Thank you," she said quietly. "I don't think I really believed Mason when he told me what he was planning to do. I thought it was a child's fantasy that he'd get scared and give up, but he didn't give up and neither did you." "Your kid's got backbone," Jack replied. "That doesn't come from nowhere. He learned it somewhere. His father." Claire's voice was soft, sad. "David would have known what to do about all this. He always knew what to do. I feel like I'm failing, constantly failing, and my kids are the ones paying the price." "You're not failing, you're surviving. There's a difference." Jack leaned forward, his elbows on the table. "And now you don't have to survive alone." As the evening deepened and the park lights flickered on, the group made their plans for the night ahead. The Turner family would go home and the riders would follow, setting up a discreet watch on the small house on Elm Street. If Philip Garner showed up in his truck, maintaining his legal distance but making his presence known, he'd find something new waiting. 8 motorcycles parked strategically around the neighborhood, their riders visible and watchful. The message would be clear. Claire Turner was no longer alone, and neither were her sons. The Turner home was a small 2-bedroom house on Elm Street. Its white paint faded to a dingy gray, and its front porch listing slightly to the left. The lawn needed mowing. and the chain-link fence around the property sagged in places, but the windows were clean, and there were flower pots by the door, wilted geraniums that someone had tried to keep alive, despite everything else demanding their attention. It was just past 7 in the evening when Jack and the others arrived, their motorcycles forming a protective perimeter around the block. The neighbors came out to watch, curious, concerned, some probably already on their phones, reporting the unusual gathering to friends. Small-town gossip moved faster than any internet connection. Claire's night shift didn't start until 9, which gave them time to settle Connor and Mason for the evening. The 7-year-old was riding high on the excitement of the day, talking non-stop about motorcycles and engines, and could he maybe learn to ride one when he got older. "Please, Mom, please." Mason was quieter, his earlier determination replaced by a kind of nervous energy, as if he was waiting for something to go wrong. "He'll come," Mason said to Jack, as they stood on the front porch together, watching the street. "He always does around this time. He knows Mom's home between shifts." "Then we'll be ready," Jack replied. Claire had changed into jeans and a sweatshirt for her cleaning shift at the office complex on the edge of town. She looked exhausted, the kind of tiredness that went bone deep and couldn't be fixed with a single good night's sleep. Rachel had stayed inside with Connor, helping him with math homework while also keeping an eye on him. The others were distributed around the neighborhood, their positions strategic and their appearances casual, as if they just happened to be hanging out in this particular area. At 7:45, a dark blue Ford pickup truck turned onto Elm Street. "That's him," Mason said, his voice tight. "That's Garner." The truck rolled slowly down the street, its driver clearly visible in the early evening light. Philip Garner was average height, soft around the middle, with thinning brown hair and glasses. He looked utterly ordinary, the kind of man you'd pass in a grocery store without a second glance. That ordinariness was somehow more unsettling than if he'd looked overtly dangerous. Garner drove past the Turner house, maintaining his legal distance, but his head turned, tracking the property. Then he seemed to notice the motorcycles. The truck slowed even further. Jack could see the moment of confusion on Garner's face, followed by what might have been concern. The truck continued to the end of the block, where it turned around in a driveway and headed back. This time, Garner pulled to the curb, not close enough to violate the restraining order, but close enough to make his presence known. He parked and sat there, engine idling, watching the house. "Stay here," Jack told Mason. He walked down the porch steps and across the yard to the sidewalk, deliberately making himself visible. Christopher and Marcus materialized from their positions, flanking Jack, but not crowding him. The three of them stood there, arms crossed, staring directly at the truck. Garner's face went through several expressions: confusion, irritation, something that might have been fear. After a long 30 seconds, he put the truck in gear and drove away, faster than he'd arrived. "That was easier than I expected," Marcus commented. "It's not over," Jack said. "That was just round 1. He was right. Over the next hour, Garner drove by 3 more times. Each time, he found riders watching. The 4th time, when he slowed down as if to park again, Christopher walked directly toward the truck, not close enough to be threatening, but clearly purposeful. Garner sped up and didn't return. "Think we scared him off?" Trevor asked when they regrouped. "Doubtful," Jack replied. "We surprised him. He needs time to think, to figure out what this means. He'll be back, but probably not tonight." At 8:30, Deputy William Cooper pulled up in his patrol car. He was in his mid-40s, with a military bearing and the kind of weathered face that suggested he'd seen more than his share of the world's ugliness. He approached the group with wary professionalism. "Evening," he said. "Got some calls about motorcycles gathering in the neighborhood. Want to tell me what's going on?" Jack extended his hand. "Jack Wallace. We spoke earlier with Mrs. Turner about providing some community support given her situation with Philip Garner." Cooper shook his hand, his expression thoughtful. "Mrs. Turner called me about an hour ago, explained the situation. I appreciate what you're trying to do, but I need to be clear. You can't harass Garner. You can't threaten him. If you do anything illegal, I'll have to arrest you, no matter how sympathetic I am to Mrs. Turner's situation." "Understood, Deputy," Jack replied. "We're not here to break the law. We're just here to make our presence known. Garner has a right to drive on public streets. We have a right to stand on public streets. As long as everyone stays within the law, there's no problem." Cooper nodded slowly. "Fair enough. But I'm telling you, men like Garner, they don't always respond rationally. You might be escalating the situation without meaning to. Or we might be giving him a reason to reconsider his behavior," Rachel interjected. "How many stalking cases have you seen, Deputy? How many times does the situation resolve itself without intervention?" Cooper's expression darkened. "Not often enough. Usually someone ends up hurt." He looked at each of them. "You seem like decent people. Just be careful. And if anything happens, you call me immediately. Don't take justice into your own hands." "That's the plan," Jack assured him. After Cooper left, the group settled in for the long wait. Claire departed for her night shift at 9, and Jack followed in his bike, maintaining a discreet distance. The office complex where she worked was mostly empty at night, and the parking lot was poorly lit. Exactly the kind of place where someone could approach without being seen. Jack parked near the entrance, visible but not intrusive. Through the building's windows, he could see Claire moving from office to office with her cleaning cart, methodically working through her shift. The hours crawled by. Jack pulled out his phone and called his sister in Pennsylvania, a conversation he'd been putting off for 2 weeks. "Jack, it's almost midnight there. Is everything okay?" "Yeah, Sarah, everything's fine. Just thinking about you. How's Mom?" They talked for 20 minutes, the mundane updates from home feeling surreal against the backdrop of his current situation. When he hung up, he realized how much he'd distanced himself from his family over the years, how the road had become both his escape and his prison. At 2 in the morning, Claire emerged from the building, looking dead on her feet. She saw Jack waiting and managed a tired smile, a small wave. He followed her home, where Marcus had taken the night watch. The house was dark except for a single light in the living room window. "All quiet," Marcus reported. "Garner drove by once around midnight, saw me here, and kept going. Get some sleep," Jack told him. "I'll take the rest of the night." As dawn broke over Millbrook, painting the sky in soft shades of grey and pink, Jack sat on his bike and thought about choices, about how easy it was to look away when someone needed help, about how most people did exactly that, not out of cruelty, but out of self-preservation, because helping meant risking your own safety, your own comfort. He'd looked away once, years ago, a neighbor whose boyfriend was clearly abusive. Jack had told himself it wasn't his business, that he didn't know the full situation, that she probably wouldn't want his help anyway. 2 months later, she'd ended up in the hospital with 3 broken ribs and a fractured skull. He'd promised himself then that he'd never look away again. 3 days later, the situation had evolved into something almost resembling a routine. The Thunder Valley Riders had made it to the Louisville charity event, raising $12,000 for the Children's Hospital. But Jack and Rachel had stayed behind in Millbrook to coordinate with the local riding clubs. The Iron Road Warriors and Freedom Riders had proven reliable, and a rotating schedule had been established that provided coverage during Claire's most vulnerable times, going to and from work, the hours when Connor was walking to school, the evenings when Garner was most likely to appear. Philip Garner had continued his pattern of driving past the house, but now he stayed farther away, and his visits were less frequent. The constant presence of riders seemed to have rattled him, made him uncertain. On the second night, he'd called the police to complain about harassment, but Deputy Cooper had patiently explained that the motorcyclists weren't violating any laws. They were simply exercising their right to be in public spaces, just as he was. On the 4th day, something changed. Mason was walking home from school with two friends, a rare occurrence as he usually went straight home to check on Connor. But Rachel had picked up the younger boy and taken him to her veterinary clinic for a visit, giving Mason a few hours of normal childhood. The three boys were laughing about something from gym class when a truck pulled up alongside them. Mason Turner. The boys stopped. Mason looked at the man in the truck's cab and felt ice water flood his veins. It was Philip Garner, but not the distant, watching version they'd gotten used to. This was up close, personal, and wrong. The truck was violating the restraining order's distance from Mason. The boy was included in the protection. "I need to talk to you about your mother," Garner said, his voice friendly, but with an edge that made Mason's skin crawl. "About these friends of yours. They're causing problems, you understand. Your mother and I, we have a connection, and these people are interfering. Drive away." Mason's voice came out steadier than he felt. "Now. You're violating the restraining order. I'm just talking to you. That's not illegal. I'm not threatening anyone. I'm just explaining that your mother needs to call off her guard dogs or..." One of Mason's friends, a boy named Tyler Chen, had his phone out and was recording. "I'm calling 911, he said loudly, clearly. Garner's expression shifted from false friendliness to anger. "You kids don't understand what you're dealing with. You tell your mother. Tell her yourself." The new voice came from behind the boys. They spun to see Jack approaching on foot, having parked his bike a block away, and walked over when he saw the truck stop. His phone was also out, recording. "But do it in writing through lawyers, because if you speak to these children again, I'm filing charges on their behalf." Garner's face flushed red. "Who the hell are you? You're not their father. You're not even family. You're just some stranger who rolled into town on a motorcycle, pretending to be something you're not." "I'm someone who documents violations of restraining orders," Jack said calmly. "You're currently within 100 feet of Mason Turner, who is protected under the same order as his mother. That's a violation. It's been recorded by 2 independent sources. Deputy Cooper's going to be very interested in this." For a moment, Garner looked like he might get out of the truck, might do something stupid and violent. But whatever he saw in Jack's expression, or maybe in the faces of the other riders who were converging on the scene, alerted by text messages, made him reconsider. He pointed at Jack, his hand shaking. "This isn't over. You think you can just roll into someone's life and play hero? You don't know anything about me and Claire. You're making a mistake. Drive away." Jack's voice hadn't risen, but something in it made Garner flinch. The truck peeled out, tires screeching on the pavement. Jack immediately called Deputy Cooper, sending him the video. Within an hour, Garner had been arrested for violating the restraining order. The evidence was clear, documented by multiple sources. He was held overnight, arraigned, and the restraining order was extended with stricter terms. But arrests didn't always mean safety, and Jack knew it. That evening, the extended group, the original Thunder Valley Riders, members from the Iron Road Warriors and Freedom Riders, and Claire with her 2 sons, gathered at the Turner home. The small living room was crowded, people sitting on every available surface, but the atmosphere was cautiously optimistic. The prosecutor says, with the violation documented so clearly they can push for jail time, Deputy Cooper explained. He'd stopped by to update everyone on Garner's status. At minimum, he's looking at probation with strict conditions, and the judge was not happy about him approaching a child. "But he'll get out eventually," Claire said quietly. She was sitting between her sons on the couch, Connor tucked under her arm. "And then what?" "Then we continue what we've been doing," Jack said. "The network is in place now. You've got phone numbers for 20 riders across 3 clubs who've committed to checking in regularly. You've got documentation protocols set up. You've got Deputy Cooper on speed dial. And most importantly, Garner knows you're not alone." That changes the calculation for him. Brandon spoke up, his phone in hand. "My cousin, the lawyer, She's been doing research. There are additional legal avenues we can pursue. Civil harassment suits, workplace complaints to his employer about him stalking an employee from his previous job. We can make his life legally complicated enough that continuing this behavior becomes more trouble than it's worth. I spoke with the prosecutor about a victims advocate program, Trevor added. They can provide counseling support for both you and the boys, help navigate the legal system, connect you with resources. Claire looked around the room at all these people, most of whom she'd met less than a week ago, who were dedicating time, energy, and resources to her family's safety. Her eyes were wet, but she was smiling. I don't know how to thank you, any of you. You don't need to thank us, Rachel said firmly. You just need to stay safe and let us help. Connor, who'd been quiet throughout most of the discussion, suddenly spoke up. Can I ask a question? Of course, buddy, Jack said. Are you going to stay, like, forever? The question hung in the air, innocent and devastating. Jack saw Mason's face, saw the same question there that his younger brother had voiced. These kids had been let down by so many systems, had learned not to trust that help would last. Some of us have to go back to our lives, Jack said honestly. We have jobs, families, responsibilities, but the people who live closer, the Iron Road Warriors, the Freedom Riders, they're here permanently. They're part of your community now. And even those of us who are farther away, we're just a phone call away. If something happens, if you need help, we come. That's what this means. You're part of the family now. The riding family, Louise clarified, smiling at Connor. It's bigger than you think. There are clubs all over the country who look out for each other, who show up when it matters. Mason had been silent, his composition notebook open in his lap. He'd been writing things down throughout the conversation. Names, numbers, procedures. Always planning, always preparing. Now he looked up at Jack. I want to learn to ride, he said. When I'm old enough, I want to do what you do, help people who need it. Jack felt something tighten in his chest. He walked over and knelt in front of the boy. Then that's what you'll do. And when you're 16 and ready for your motorcycle license, you call me. I'll teach you myself. Promise? Promise. The gathering slowly dispersed as evening turned to night. Plans were made for the coming weeks. The court dates, the continued presence schedule, the connections to support services. Christopher had contacted Bikers Against Child Abuse, and they were sending representatives to meet with the family and assess how they could provide additional long-term support. As people filtered out, Jack found himself alone on the front porch with Claire. The street was quiet, except for the sound of crickets and the distant rumble of a motorcycle starting up. You probably saved our lives, Claire said softly. I know that sounds dramatic, but I really believe it. Another few months of that constant fear, that constant pressure. I don't know what would have broken first, me or the situation. And it wouldn't have ended well either way. Mason saved your lives, Jack corrected. He's the one who had the courage to ask for help. Most people never do. They suffer in silence until it's too late. He's so much like his father. David would have liked you. I would have liked to meet him. Jack leaned against the porch railing, looking up at the stars visible above the small town's minimal light pollution. Can I tell you something about why I really stayed? Please. 20 years ago, I lived in a neighborhood in Pittsburgh, had a neighbor, woman in her late 20s, lived alone. She had a boyfriend who was wrong. We all saw it. The way he'd yell at her in the parking lot. The way she'd flinch when he moved too quickly. The sounds through the walls sometimes. And I told myself it wasn't my business. That maybe it looked worse than it was. That she was an adult who could leave if she wanted to. He paused. The old guilt as fresh as ever. She ended up in the hospital, nearly died. And I had to live with knowing I could have done something, could have at least tried, and I chose not to. Claire was quiet for a moment. That wasn't your fault. Maybe not legally, but morally, Yeah, some of it was mine. All of ours who lived there and did nothing. He looked at her directly. I can't change what happened then, but I can show up now. That's all any of us can do. Show up when it matters as many times as we can and hope it makes a difference. It does, Claire said. It really does. Inside, through the window, they could see Mason and Connor playing a board game on the floor, Rachel laughing at something Connor said. It was a glimpse of normalcy, of childhood that wasn't consumed by fear. It was fragile, easily broken, but it was there. 3 weeks later, Philip Garner pled guilty to violating the restraining order and accepted a plea deal that included 6 months in jail, 2 years of probation, mandatory counseling, and a permanent restraining order that extended to 500 feet and included provisions preventing any form of contact, direct or indirect, with Claire or her children. His employer, after learning the full extent of his stalking behavior, terminated his employment. The motorcycle presence around the Turner home had become a fixture in Millbrook. Some neighbors had initially been wary, but as the story spread, and small-town stories always spread, the attitude shifted. The bikers became known as the group who'd helped the Turner family, who'd stood up when it mattered. Several other families quietly reached out, sharing their own situations of harassment or fear, asking if help might be available. Jack returned to his home in Tennessee, but he called Mason every week. The boy's grades had improved with the reduction in stress, and he'd even joined the school's debate team. Connor's asthma attacks had decreased in frequency. Claire had been able to cut back to one job after a local community fundraiser, organized by Rachel and the riding clubs, had helped clear some of their medical debt. The story could have ended there, with the immediate crisis resolved and everyone moving forward. But real life didn't offer neat endings, and Jack knew the work was ongoing. Trauma didn't disappear just because the threat did. Healing took time, took support, took consistency. 6 months after that first encounter outside Red's diner, Jack rode back to Millbrook for what had become a monthly check-in. He found the Turner home transformed, fresh paint on the porch, new flowers blooming in well-tended boxes, a sense of life being lived rather than endured. Mason and Connor were in the yard, and when they saw Jack's motorcycle turn onto their street, they both ran to greet him. "Jack, you're here!" Connor launched himself at Jack as soon as the bike stopped, all 7-year-old enthusiasm and zero restraint. "Easy, buddy. Let me get my helmet off first." Jack laughed, ruffling the boy's hair. He looked at Mason, who approached more slowly, but with a genuine smile. "How's it going, kid?" "Good, really good, actually." Mason held up his composition notebook, a new one, not the bent and stained original. "I've been keeping records like you taught me. Not of bad stuff anymore, though. Just life stuff. Things I want to remember." "That's the best kind of record to keep." Claire came out onto the porch, wiping her hands on a dish towel. She looked different, lighter somehow, as if a weight had been physically removed from her shoulders. "Jack Wallace, you'd better be staying for dinner. I made pot roast and there's plenty." "I wouldn't dream of refusing pot roast," Jack replied, grinning. That evening, sitting around a dinner table crowded with food and laughter and conversation about ordinary things, school projects and funny customer stories and whether the Colts had any chance this season, Jack felt something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not the temporary peace of the road, where problems were left behind but never truly resolved. This was the peace of seeing something through, of watching people not just survive, but begin to thrive. After dinner, as Claire was putting Connor to bed and Mason was doing homework at the kitchen table, Jack sat on the porch with Rachel, who'd ridden over from Bloomington to join them. They'd become close over the past months, their shared commitment to the Turner family forming a bond that had deepened into friendship and maybe eventually something more. "You know what Mason told me last week?" Rachel said, her voice quiet so it wouldn't carry inside. "He said he wants to start a club at his school, like a support network for kids dealing with difficult situations at home. He wants to create a place where kids can ask for help without being ashamed. That sounds like him, Jack said. Taking his experience and turning it into something that helps others. He learned that from you, from all of us. Rachel looked at him. You know this is going to keep happening, right? We can't save everyone. We're going to get calls, requests for help from people in situations we can't fix. It's going to be hard. I know, but we can try. We can show up for as many as we can reach, and we can build networks so others can do the same. It's not about being perfect or saving everyone. It's about being present, about not looking away. Rachel nodded, and they sat in comfortable silence as the evening deepened around them, the sound of a small-town night settling over Millbrook, dogs barking, a car passing in the distance, the murmur of a television through an open window. Normal sounds, safe sounds. Inside, Mason finished his homework and closed his books. He walked to the window and looked out at the two riders sitting on his porch, the motorcycles parked in the driveway catching the light from the street lamps. 6 months ago, those motorcycles had represented a desperate gamble, a child's last hope when all the proper channels had failed. Now, they represented something different, proof that community could take unexpected forms, that family wasn't always about blood, and that sometimes the right people showed up exactly when they were needed most. He thought about the list he'd been making in his new notebook, not of threats and fears and things that needed fixing, but of dreams and possibilities and futures that suddenly seemed achievable. At the top of the list, in careful handwriting, learn to ride, help others, show up when it matters. Mason smiled and turned away from the window. His mother was reading to Connor, their voices a soft murmur from the bedroom. The house felt safe. His family felt safe. And while he knew that safety was something that had to be maintained, had to be protected through vigilance and community and the willingness of people to care about each other, he also knew they weren't alone anymore. They would never be alone again. Years later, when Mason Turner finally got his motorcycle license at 16, Jack kept his promise. He taught the young man to ride on empty back roads in southern Indiana, patient through every wobble and stall, celebrating every successful turn and smooth acceleration. And when Mason turned 18 and talked about starting a riding club specifically focused on supporting families dealing with harassment and violence, Jack was there to help him draft the bylaws and recruit the first members. The club was called Second Chance Riders, and their patch featured a phoenix rising, not from ashes, but from a road stretching toward the horizon. They partnered with Bikers Against Child Abuse, with women's shelters, with community organizations across 3 states. They showed up at court dates to support victims. They provided visible presence for families being stalked or harassed. They created networks of support that extended far beyond what any single club could accomplish. And at every founding meeting, at every event, at every moment when someone needed to explain why they did this work, Mason told the story of a desperate 11-year-old boy who stood on a curb outside a hardware store and waited for strangers to ride by so he could ask them for help. He told the story of bikers who didn't look away, who showed up when it mattered, who proved that family was something you built through choice and commitment rather than something you were simply born into. It was a story about fear and courage, about desperation and hope, about the way one moment of asking for help could ripple outward and change everything. It was a true story, grounded in the reality of small-town America, in the challenges faced by vulnerable families, and in the community that could form when people chose to care about each other. But most importantly, it was a story about showing up, and showing up was everything.